If the prophecy makes 10 points and only 9 of them are fulfilled, but one of them isn't, then it's not a fulfilled prophecy. All 10 points need to be fulfilled. And if Jesus isn't the one to whom the money was given, and it wasn't Jesus that threw the money into the temple, and Jesus is the true shepherd, and the shepherd's the one who receives the money and throws it into the temple, then it's not fulfillment prophecy. It's just wrong. We have here an experience of a lifetime. An experience of a lifetime. Are you at least 18 years old?
Yeah.
All right. And what pronouns do you go by?
He, they.
All right. And are you a Christian?
Yes.
All right. I'm Dalton, the Bible guy. Which one of the 3 topics on the board would you like to discuss with us?
I think Christianity is true, so the second prompt.
All right. The reason I think Christianity is false is for twofold. One, no one's been able to demonstrate to me that the Christian God exists, so I can't really believe in him because I'm not convinced. And 2, the Bible makes the claim that Jesus is the Christ, and yet he doesn't fulfill any prophecies about the Christ from the Old Testament.
Okay. I guess what prophecy says Jesus is not fulfilled?
Any of them whatsoever. It would probably be easier if you just named one that he did.
Well, firstly, do you think that Jesus existed?
Yeah.
Jesus of Nazareth.
Yeah.
Okay. And would you, I guess, are you an atheist?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, specifically, would you say that some arguments, like the teleological argument or the contingency argument,
what does the
support for?
What does the teleological argument or the fine-tuning argument have to do with Jesus fulfilling prophecy?
Well, firstly, I just want to prove that a God exists.
Okay, so we're not talking about the prophecy when we're talking about God existing.
Sure. Do you want to talk about the prophecies first?
It's up to you. I just need you to make sure you pick a lane.
Okay. Sure. I think that Jesus did fulfill messianic expectations.
Can you hear me?
All right. Name the prophecy that you like, the best prophecy that you think Jesus fulfilled.
Yeah, he was betrayed for 30 pieces of silver.
But there's no prophecy in the Old Testament that says the Messiah will be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver.
Yes, there was. Matthew 26-27.
Yeah, do you know what passage Matthew is quoting?
Yeah, specifically the final hours of Jesus' life.
No, I mean, Matthew is making the claim that there's a prophecy in the Old Testament that says something about the Messiah being betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. Do you know where this prophecy is?
Oh, yeah, sorry. The messianic prophecies, and I think it's Zechariah. It's in 11:12-13. I don't know.
All right, let's see if this passage has anything to do with the Messiah being betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. Well, we're going to start a couple verses beforehand in verse 7, and we'll see. It says here, so on behalf of the sheep merchants, I became the shepherd of the flock, doomed to slaughter. Who's the I?
This is Zechariah?
Yeah, Zechariah is talking. I took 2 staffs, one I named Favor, and the other I named Unity, and I tended the sheep. In 1 month, I disposed of 3 shepherds, for I had become impatient with them, and they also detested me. So I said, I will not be your shepherd. What is to die, let it die. What is to be destroyed, let it be destroyed. And let those that are left devour the flesh of one another. I took my staff Favor and broke it, annulling the covenant that I made with all the peoples. So it was annulled on that day, and the sheep merchants who were watching me knew that it was the word of the Lord. Who's I there? Still Zechariah, right?
Yeah.
Said to them, and who's the them?
The merchants.
Yes. I, Zechariah, said to the sheep merchants, if it seems right to you, give me my wages, but if not, keep them. So they weighed out as my wages 30 shekels of silver. So note here that in this passage that Matthew quotes and says is a prophecy about Jesus, it doesn't mention first and foremost, it has nothing to do with the Messiah. It's about Zechariah himself. And also, no one here is being betrayed. Someone here is being paid what is owed to them. They are being paid a wage for a job they performed, and the wage they are paid is 30 pieces of silver. So it looks like Matthew is taking this passage out of context to make it look as if Jesus fulfilled prophecy.
Well, yeah, in this specific verse, it's talking about when the people of Israel were rejecting like God's leadership.
Yeah, in the time of Zechariah, it has nothing to do with someone being betrayed for 30 pieces of silver.
30 pieces of silver was a compensation price for a slave that was gored by an ox.
But wait, was Zechariah a slave?
No, but paying that specifically was an insult. Okay. It was comparing the shepherd's work to a slave.
But where is someone in this passage being betrayed?
Okay, wait. So you do concede that this was specifically meant to be insulting?
Sure, it's insulting to
God is responding with sarcasm.
Insulting to Zechariah. That Zechariah is like being told, listen, you owe me a wage for the work I've done. All right, pay me my wages. And then they short-ended him. They gave him 30 pieces of silver. But this has nothing to do with the person being betrayed in the future for 30 pieces of silver. This is about Zechariah being shortchanged 30 pieces of silver for a work that he was like compensated for.
Yeah. So the betrayal language is basically the New Testament's description of Judas. So in Zechariah, it's specifically talking about how the shepherd was being rejected by those who he was sent to care for. The specific messianic interpretation was about how people were rejecting.
Wait, the shepherd cares for the sheep. Where in this passage does it say the sheep are the ones? It's not the sheep. It's the shepherd merchants, the sheep merchants who are shortchanging the shepherd, not the sheep that he's like been taking care of.
Yeah, this is analogous to the shepherd.
Well, no, all we have here is a shepherd who is Zechariah, who is taking care of sheep, and then he demands the wages for his work from the sheep merchants, and then they pay him 30 pieces of silver, which is too low. But has nothing to do with the Messiah, and no one here is being betrayed. They're just being shortchanged.
Well, I told you that the betrayal part that you're looking for is specifically in the New Testament's description of Judas.
Yeah, I know. The authors in the New Testament see Judas betray Jesus and betraying him for 30 pieces of silver, and they're making the claim that this is the fulfillment of prophecy, but the passage they're quoting isn't a prophecy about the Messiah and doesn't describe anyone, but it's not. It's about Zechariah.
It's referencing the struck shepherd later in the past.
Zechariah got struck. It's
when we're applying it to Jesus.
Wait, why would we apply it to Jesus when consistently the shepherd here is using first person pronouns? It's Zechariah speaking. You've already told us at the beginning of this conversation that this is Zechariah.
He was acting as a shepherd over the flock doomed for slaughter. So the flock is being referenced as Judah, as being referenced as Israel under judgment. If you can reference back to Judah under judgment, the buyers are going to be the ones who slaughter them without the guilt, and then the sellers who profit say, "Blessed be the Lord, for I am rich."
Did someone pay Jesus 30 pieces of silver? Because the shepherd's the one who gets paid here.
No, but he was betrayed for 30 pieces of silver.
So we have someone betrayed for 30 pieces of silver versus another person over here who's being paid 30 pieces of silver for a work they're doing. these are not the only thing that these two things have in common is 30 pieces of silver, and that's the only thing they have in common. Is that all it takes?
Yeah, the Masoretic.
Is that all it takes to be fulfill a prophecy? Is to have like the bare minimum semblance between two different events?
Well, I mean, I quite literally think that when we look at the analogy that's being painted here with the shepherds and the flock, it's quite literally.
But it's not analogous to Jesus, because in your idea, Jesus is the shepherd, right?
Yeah.
Okay, in this passage, the shepherd is being paid 30 pieces of silver, but Jesus wasn't paid 30 pieces of silver. Judas was.
Yeah. Zechariah here is specifically like we could see that within Zechariah when Israel was being rejected of the true shepherd from Zechariah's interaction
but there's no shepherd in there's no shepherd in the New Testament being paid money.
The question is, why would you think that your interpretation of this passage is more likely the correct interpretation than what Dalton provided? Or, as it's plainly read, seems like I is Zechariah.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with Jesus. Like, why would you think has something to do with Jesus just because in a later passage, written much later, that they related it to this passage?
If you were unaware of the Jesus story, would you ever come to this conclusion about that's what this passage is talking about?
If I was unaware of the Jesus story,
would you come to the conclusion that this passage is a prophecy of the far future about someone being betrayed for 30 pieces of silver?
If it's prophetic, then it would be foreshadowing future events. If I was unaware of the future events, then I quite literally can't determine whether it's a prophecy or not.
Prophecies don't make sense. Prophecies don't foreshadow future events; they tell future events. They tell you plainly what will happen. Yes. For an example of this would be like, for example, Jeremiah 23, which tells us that there will one day be a king that comes from the line of David, and that in his time the people of Israel will dwell securely.
A prophecy is just a message being communicated by a supernatural entity.
That is the generic idea of like God speaks to a prophet and tells them to tell the people. Like if a prophet tells people repent, that's technically a word of prophecy. But when we speak of prophecy in this instance, what we're meaning is a prediction of the future. And this isn't predicting. There's nothing in Zechariah that would indicate to me or anyone else that this is meant to be about the Messiah being betrayed.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have to, I guess, provide like a quote unquote of what the future event was, because that's not what.
But like this is like the weakest connection you could possibly make between two texts. The only thing these two texts have in common is 30 pieces of silver, and that's it.
Yeah, why would you think this is a prophecy just because it's being related to a later?
Is it only because the New Testament told you it was a prophecy?
Well, yeah, if we I guess linguistically look at the motif that's being compared between Zechariah and Matthew, it's just talking about when the money ended up in the temple, and the pricing of the shepherd.
But the money didn't end up in the temple. It was used to buy a field.
The money did end up in the temple. Wait.
But either way, Jesus wasn't paid the money. Jesus. Okay, here, watch this. Watch. I'll make this very simple. I'll get my notepad out. Watch this. All right. Okay. Do you agree with this first statement? Okay. Here, let me make this a little bit bigger. So there's okay. Number 1, Jesus is the shepherd. You agree with this?
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. 2, in Zechariah, the shepherd is paid 30 silver. Do you agree with this?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Number
I don't
3.
think I'm not equivocating on the first and second. I don't think that they're the same shepherd.
So the shepherd is Judas? Judas is the shepherd?
No, they're referencing Zechariah playing the role of the true shepherd.
Wait, so
in
Zechariah is playing the true shepherd. Okay, so watch. Number 3 is Zechariah is portraying the true shepherd. Is Jesus the true shepherd?
Yeah.
Okay, Jesus is the true shepherd. Okay. Is the true shepherd, and you agree already that in Zechariah, the shepherd, the true shepherd, is paid 30 pieces of silver, right?
Yeah, and Zechariah,
Okay.
the shepherd.
So now the question. Was Jesus paid 30 silver?
No.
Then it's not analogous because the true shepherd is the one being paid 30 silver, but Jesus wasn't paid 30 silver.
No. My original claim was that he was betrayed.
Wait, what? I know Jesus was betrayed. He was, which is the problem. Jesus was betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. The person getting paid 30 pieces of silver is Judas. That's why this is a problem. Is there any one of these 4 points prior to the question? Are any of these 4 points incorrect?
Well, yeah. Firstly, the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus was agreed to, Judas agreed to hand Jesus over.
I'm aware of that, but I'm asking you, which one of these 4 points on the board prior to the question that was asked is incorrect?
None of them are incorrect, but my original claim was that the prophecy was that they were being betrayed.
But the prophecy doesn't say that someone's being betrayed.
It does.
No. It
Where
says
does it say?
It's
literally
show me in which verses the word betrayed occur.
Well, yeah, specifically, Zechariah, being when Zechariah is paid 30 pieces of silver, which I already compared before to the low value of work and the insult that was given there. God responded with sarcasm.
Zechariah is paid 30 pieces of silver, but Judas is the one who's paid 30 pieces of silver, not Jesus.
And then
this is
Zechariah,
just I'm sorry.
So just to be clear,
this is just incongruent. This analogy, and now it's a bad analogy.
Okay.
If I'm hearing this right, you're saying betrayal. There's an analogy of betrayal. It's not even an explicit situation of betrayal because you're just saying somebody being paid less than market value is betrayal. Is that what you think?
No, when God specifically told the prophet to throw the money to the potter in the house of the Lord, this was the low valuation of the true shepherd.
So Zechariah,
which showed.
So Zechariah throws money into the temple, but what does that have to do with who's being paid who's being betrayed or paid 30 pieces of silver?
Well, yeah, specifically because the prophet Zechariah prophesied about 30 pieces of silver centuries before it happened.
But that's the only thing that these two passages have in common is that it's 30 pieces of silver. That's the only thing they have in common. Nothing else is in common. Nothing else. Is that all it takes to be a prophecy fulfilled? Is that you have 2 stories where almost all the events are different. The only thing is they have one thing in common.
When God
I'm sorry. That's not good enough. That's not.
God told Zechariah to throw the 30 pieces of silver to the potter in the house of the Lord, that was exemplary of the prophecy.
Yeah, but that's not a prophecy though. Again, you've yet to give me a reason to think this is about the Messiah, and also there's no betrayal.
How little
it's also disanalogous.
Plus, I'm sure there's been plenty of scenarios where shepherds were paid 30 shekels.
Yeah.
How do you know it wasn't been talking about that situation?
Well, yeah, specifically because God is talking to a prophet, and God calls it the princely price. So he used irony to show the disrespect that people had for God's leadership.
But there's nothing in the text that even tells us it's about the Messiah. Again, you've saying that this is an analogy. You're saying that this is analogous. Well, then point up. What does the Dead Sea Scrolls say?
What does the Dead Sea Scrolls say?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure.
Then why bring up that this is the Masoretic unless you knew for a fact that the Dead Sea Scroll says otherwise?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure what exactly. I mean, I think that the traditional Hebrew.
I think you brought up this is the Masoretic because you thought that would be a good the
get out of jail free
card. Like if you don't like what the scripture says, you can just go, that's the Masoretic, and it must say something different in the original text.
How about this, Alex? Are you aware of the scholarly consensus of what the interpretation of that text says?
Yeah, the Christian consensus is
scholarly consensus.
By scholarly, I don't know what you mean, like a
you don't understand theology? I mean, the people that have PhDs in theology that study religion and Christian studies.
Yeah, the critical historical consensus is that this is just showing leadership failure on the covenant relationship in Zechariah's time, and the traditional, which I would say the Christian interpretation, is that the rejected shepherd is the foreshadowing.
That's the problem, though, is that we're rejecting the Christian interpretation because it doesn't line up with what the text actually says in Zechariah.
I just told you that it does, because when the shepherd was being considered,
it's like having a story where there's a story where there's these two donkeys, and then someone makes up a story about Jesus where there's two donkeys, and nothing else in these two stories have anything in common other than that there are two donkeys, and then you call it a prophecy. Just there being 30 pieces of silver is inadequate to call this a prophecy about the Messiah. Especially since it just does. I'm sorry, bud, that this is not going to work out for you, as Jesus isn't paid the 30 pieces of silver. The shepherd is paid 30 pieces of silver. So I'm just going to have to reject this as being a prophecy.
Would you say that Zechariah is predicting a future individual Messiah in Zechariah 11?
It's unclear from what we've just read, but if it is, then it would just tell us that one day the Messiah will be paid 30 pieces of silver, which Jesus wasn't.
Okay, and would you say that the Christian argument here is just about fulfillment of the prophecy?
It's not fulfilled because Jesus wasn't paid 30 pieces of silver. This is how you fulfill a prophecy.
Well,
the prophet says X, Y, and Z will happen, and then later on person does X, Y, and Z. If prophet says X, Y, and Z will happen, but then prophecy is Z, Y, and X will happen, or a different, even B, Y, and X, because there are different factors, then it's not fulfillment. It's something different that's happening.
Well, it's the argument here is that I don't know if I'm using the correct word here, but what I mean by fulfillment here is just I'm saying that the structural features of the wording within these specific passages.
Oh, we reject that. We reject that. That's not we reject that as being the meaning of the word fulfillment here. When we say here on this channel, prophecy fulfilled, we mean that something Jesus did is actually foretold explicitly in the prophets. The prophet says that the future king of Israel or the Messiah will do X, Y, and Z, and Jesus actually does that. Not seeing, these words are similar to something that else that happened in Jesus' life, and that's a fulfillment. No, that's weak sauce. We don't consider that a fulfillment of prophecy. At that point, I'm justified in rejecting Jesus as the Messiah if that's the best we can do as far as Jesus fulfilling prophecy.
Wait, in Matthew, Jesus, the 30 pieces of silver wasn't thrown into the temple and it wasn't used for a potter's field?
Well, that doesn't matter. If it wasn't paid to Jesus, then it's not fulfilling the prophecy, because it's the shepherd who is paid.
In Zechariah, the money was thrown into the temple for the potter.
I don't care. If Jesus doesn't get paid the 30 pieces of silver, it can't be fulfilled. It's as simple as that. I don't care if 2 out of the 3, even if it was even if there were 10. Wait, not done. even if they were
Zechariah
like,
didn't accept the payment. He threw it out.
wait, did Jesus throw the money into the temple?
No,
Okay,
but
then here's the
God,
thing. If the prophecy, stop talking while I'm talking. If the prophecy makes 10 points and only 9 of them are fulfilled, but one of them isn't, then it's not a fulfilled prophecy. All 10 points need to be fulfilled. And if Jesus isn't the one to whom the money was given, and it wasn't Jesus that threw the money into the temple, and Jesus is the true shepherd, and the shepherd's the one who receives the money and throws it into the temple, then it's not fulfillment prophecy. It's just wrong.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that he fulfilled the exact event. I'm just saying that he fulfilled the earlier pattern here.
Then I reject it. Not good enough.
Reject that he fulfilled a pattern?
Yeah, I reject it. It's not good enough. He didn't fit the pattern. He only fits part of the pattern, and that 30 pieces of silver are present, but nothing else.
He didn't. Okay, wait. I would say that he fulfilled all of the pattern.
No, he didn't, because he wasn't paid 30 pieces of silver. So, no.
Okay.
Do you have something better?
Was the prophecy here?
Do you have
the prophecy?
Do you have a prophecy that Jesus actually fulfilled where you don't have to do it?
Was the prophecy about payment?
About famine?
About payment.
Yes. What do you think of wages? What's wages? What is a wage?
Yeah. The set of, I guess, annual payments that an individual gets.
It doesn't have to be annual. It's just a payment, usually of money for labor or services, usually according to contract on an hour, daily, or piecework basis, often used in plural. So Zechariah performs a labor, that is, he's a shepherd, okay? And then he receives the wage, which is the payment. Jesus is the shepherd, allegedly, but he doesn't receive a payment and he doesn't throw it into the temple. So this is not actually 1-to-1. It's like it's only Jesus fulfilling prophecy if you squint your eyes and you cover one eye and then you tilt your head, and then it looks like Jesus fulfilled a prophecy.
Yeah, pieces of silver here is just talking about the shekels being used, but
yeah, but to whom were they given? The shepherd?
Yeah, the shepherd was given that as his wages,
and who's Judas, is Judas the shepherd?
In Matthew, is
Judas the shepherd?
Judas is paid to betray Jesus.
Wait, is Judas a shepherd? Is he the true shepherd?
No.
Then this doesn't matter. Someone else is being paid.
Do you need to be a shepherd in order to fulfill the prophecy?
Yes, because it's a shepherd who gets paid.
Where is that mentioned?
Well, if it's not analogous, then it's not fulfillment. Like, what's the point of saying, "Oh, it's a shepherd," if it's not meant to be analogous to something? If someone's in prophecy, at least, by the way, this wouldn't be prophecy. This would be at best what we would call typology. This isn't actually prophecy. This is typology. But in order for typology to work, oh. Damn. He left. Damn. That's crazy work.